It has a massive flow on for not only the client and the builder, but imagine the subtrades, what they'd be thinking. Like you've structured their work in, most people, and this is one thing that annoys me about the building industry, is they just think that the builder, oh, it's just a small thing. They won't care about it. Like you got to stop work, you got to plan it, you got to quote it, you got to type up the admin variation. It all takes time. Now, these guys might be mid-build. It might be a wall needing to be moved, and I know I've been guilty of it before where you just go, should be all right, we'll work it out at the end." That's where it goes to shit, I reckon, like,
Mm.
when you do that.
Thinking about building or renovating? Or maybe you are already knee-deep in a project now. Are you feeling unsure of which steps to take and if you are making the right calls? You're not alone. Welcome to Builders Beyond Borders, the podcast where experienced Aussie builders share real stories, insider tips, and practical advice so you can build with confidence, avoid costly mistakes, and actually enjoy the journey. Let's dive in.
Hello, hello, hello. I sound like one of those old ads from the radio down here in Melbourne. It was Chris and Mari. If you know the reference, it's quite an old one. Showing my age, this is terrible. But welcome to another episode of Builders Beyond Borders podcast, the podcast for helping homeowners to be able to get the best out of their builds. So today we are joined by Paul and Matt. So Paul is from Independent Building Solutions in Canberra, and Matt is way down in Warrnambool at Matthew Old Builder. So welcome,
We always
guys.
get told, well, way down in Warrnambool,
It's a
like
fun
we're
thing to throw out there.
like we're in Tassie,
We nearly are. It's not far.
or the weather would suggest.
Well, the coast is nice down there. I mean,
It
it's
is.
it's it's a sunny day down there today,
Yeah.
isn't it?
No, it's not a bad day today.
It's only straight out your front door, Matt, the water, and you'd nearly see Tassie on a clear day, wouldn't you?
Exactly, yep.
Thanks for joining us, guys. And today we're going through something that we've sort of touched on mildly before, but we just decided that we'd like to talk about things of the fears of making costly changes mid build and what the flow on effects can actually be from that and from not pre planning a lot of things that can come up during a build. So we've got some stories and we're going to share them with you. So here we go. And I think, well, I could probably even start with a fun little one. What can actually happen from a little change during, not a little change. It was something that could turn into something a lot larger. And where we were doing a project and there was there was a bit of work that was happening, and the client came in and decided that they wanted to change the finishing tiles within their bathrooms on a build. And well, that did turn into a very costly change because the tiling had actually started, and they saw what was going on and weren't pleased. And there was a couple of things that actually precipitated that event actually coming about, but all in all, the variation that was going to happen and the costs that were arising from that were in excess of sort of $30,000 to $40,000. You get that sort of shock, that bill shock, I guess you could call it, during a build. Nobody wants to experience that, but were there certain things that could have prevented that from happening? Yes, definitely. And really, that was part of that real early design, pre-selections and that sort of thing that could have changed that whole scenario and that whole event completely. But that's, I guess, chalk it up to a lesson for everybody that yeah, if you can't see what's going to be sort of going into your house and there's no pre-planning, it can lead to something being really costly and happening mid-build, and yeah, the relationship could be fractured as a result.
It has a massive flow on for not only the client and the builder, but imagine the subtrades, what they'd be thinking. Like you've structured their work in, most people, and this is one thing that annoys me about the building industry, is they just think that the builder, oh, it's just a small thing. They won't care about it. Like you got to stop work, You got to plan it. You got to quote it. You got to type up the admin variation. It all takes time. Now, these guys might be mid-build. It might be a wall needing to be moved, and I know I've been guilty of it before, where you just go, should be all right. We'll work it out at the end." That's where it goes to shit, I reckon. Like
Mm.
when you do that. So we've learned some harsh examples from previous experiences where we've had to tighten up that admin side of things, which soon as you mention the word admin, that's where the cost comes in because everything slows down with admin. You got to plan it, you got to put everything into place, you got to make sure you get visual, physical checks on, on what they want to change. Yeah, it's sometimes it's unavoidable. Like, designer might not have put the room at the right size. There might be too much hallway and not enough bedroom or things like that. So some things are unavoidable, some things are. But yeah, the time is the biggest thing, and that's where the cost runs in because you might have a job where you might want to move something, and as you said, it's already started. Well, that might have a flow-on effect for 4 or 5 sub trades. Then all of a sudden, you start getting their bills in, and it can rack up pretty quick.
Yeah, it sure can. Definitely.
Yeah, it's always been probably the biggest cause of conflict, I think, on a building site, on a building project that I can remember. Yeah, it would be for sure because obviously, cost is always a big factor for most people because and most people want a lot more than they can afford. I think it's just human nature. We all want as much as we can get for our money, don't we? And yeah, I think it's something we've worked a lot on over the years to try and iron that out and to get that sort of process a lot more streamlined and a lot more sort of friendlier with everyone. I think it's just a case of keeping on top of it. It's the old methods of, big fat bill at the end for all the extras where people fall off their chair has, always been a big issue that I've seen. So we try and sort of nurture people through it, and I try and take that like scary part, you said at the start. Try and take that scary part out of it by just talking to them straight away about what it is. So, well, if you want to do this, it's going to take this long. It's going to cost this much. It's going to hold the job up. It's going to and you have to run them through the process step by step of what it's going to be. And it can be a bit frustrating and a bit time consuming. And you get some people that just cannot make up their mind on something. So you're going over and over the same thing 10 times for a week or so. And say, look, this is holding up the job. We can't sort of proceed. But you've got to be patient and you've got to just put up with it. When I was younger, I wouldn't. I'd get annoyed and I'd get cranky, and there's where the problems would start. So you've learned as I got older to just sit back, and grit your teeth and try and work through it with them. And I'm finding that, we haven't had those issues for quite a few years for that reason. It's just, but it does cost you money, cost you time, cost you money. And I think we just have to try and have a contingency built into every project. I do anyway, to try and cover that sort of thing because it's inevitably going to happen. I don't think I've ever done one where it hasn't happened. They always end up changing something or adding something, don't they? It's very rare someone will go right through the process without some kind of a variation.
It's part of the major build contract, isn't it, Hugh? I can't remember. I remember reading it somewhere at one stage that there was a section in the master builder one, I reckon, that says if you decide to change something, this is what it'll incur plus cost of job. I can't remember. It was a few years ago now when I read that, but it was, yeah, we just make it a part of our special conditions now and just put it in there that there's an admin cost to process it, then you've got the physical cost of it happening, and then yeah, give them the choice to proceed and always refer back to that contract, I suppose.
Yeah, definitely. Look, I know that it's not a written thing in HIA contracts for any of those fees or anything like that. But I think that because I use HIA contracts,
Yeah.
I haven't seen a master builder contract in a long time. The thing that sort of that is put in there is just talk about what variations are and whether it's builder driven, whether it's client driven or anything like that, and what small terms might be in there, but it doesn't go into anything about the costs and fees and all that sort of thing. But at the end of the day, there are fees associated for the admin, like you're saying, with the work to be done as well, and all that sort of thing needs to be taken into account and documented. And if your builder has a process for that, and there is a fee, I guess you could just turn around and just chalk it up as okay. Well, then they know what they're doing,
Mm.
and they're actually going to be doing the right thing. And I mean, yeah, okay, people want to spend a fair bit of time, and the fear of making a change during a build is that what's this actually going to cost me? And are they going to try and, this is probably the most common thing that I've heard people say is it going to cost me more to do it now because the builder might be trying to recoup costs? Or they're going to try and stitch me up, and these sorts of things. Okay, yes, they're warranted because of the gut feeling that's out there, and for clients in the industry and that sort of thing at the moment. Anyway, where do we actually sit when it comes to that sort of thing? I mean, we're trying to do the right thing. We're trying to be honest and go through. Okay, well, we're explaining that there are these costs, there are the fees, there are unavoidable fees when it comes to that because the flow-on effects, as you mentioned earlier, Matt, was about it doesn't just change that one wall or something like that, but the schedule of works is going to change because of that. And that flow on effect, because it could throw 3 trades out. And what's the cost of throwing those 3 trades out because they need to wait before they can come back, or they need to change the materials, or they may need to the things might end up being reordered because it might be a completely different product that might need to be used, and how much does that actually end up costing everybody? Because the flow-on effects from minor changes during a mid build can end up being quite costly because all in all, it's sort of like doing a renovation.
Mm.
It doesn't matter whether it's a new build or a renovation in itself, but one little change, if it's already built or something like that, because somebody doesn't decides they don't like it when they do a do a milestone inspection or something on a project, it can it can get pear shaped very quickly.
Well, it affects your trades too, doesn't it? I mean, your electrician might have jobs booked in for the next 6 months, and if you have to put him off, he has to put his next client off or try and shuffle his clients around, and that can happen with all your trades, can't it? Your plumber,
Mm.
plasterer, electrician, whatever. So not only are you pushing all your guys back, you're pushing all the other work that those guys got as well. You're pushing that back, and it's a bit of a big domino effect. That's a lot of people don't understand that sort of thing, and it can hold the job up. They might be able to do another job after yours that they have to start now. So say, "Oh, we don't want you this week, we want you next week." Well, next week I'm booked out, and the week after, you're gonna have to wait 3 or 4 weeks now before I can come back, sort of thing. Can be a big effect on the project, can't it? If that sort of thing starts to happen.
It
Yeah.
also starts breaking down the relationship with your sub trades if you go, "Oh, look, we've got to do this and we've got to do that." Oh, hang on, it wasn't part of the scope of works. And if it does start costing him time, the next time you ring him up for a job and say, "Righto, we've got this one ready to go," blah, 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 he's not going to know whether, is this all I'm going to be doing, or are we going to have extras again? Or is it, it just, like you said, it throws them out massively with time.
Mm.
And most of those guys work to a fairly strict timetable, whereas we're more more of an open. We're on site all of the time. Whereas when they come in and fleeting moments to do their roughings and their fit offs and stuff like that, they're there for scheduled times where they know how long they're going to be there. We had one on that house we're doing out the road. They wanted to maybe up the walls, or I can't remember. It was shift something in one of the bedrooms, and I was like, "Yeah, we can move it for you." But you're gonna have a hole in your hydronic heating because we can't hydronic heating's already in the slab. So we can't go shifting a wall and moving it to there because we don't know where we're gonna be drilling through the pipes. So it got left alone. So
Oh, I'll give you a really good example of something that can happen that is more so a positive change that can happen during a project. And sometimes this can happen and decisions can be made very quickly and can be made on the fly without too much of an adjustment. But there's still that little bit of admin that needs to be done on a project I'm doing currently, where we'd allowed for ducted aircon systems to be able to go through the project. And one of the things that happened was we thought that we'd allowed enough space in the roof trusses to be able to cater for the unit that was going up into there. And with the forward planning that we're doing, so we get the frame up and we're on the phone to the aircon guys, come out, all right, do the measure, let's work out what we need to do, duct work and all that sort of thing. First thing that happens before we even start talking ducting is he looks up, looks into the space and he goes, "I'm not gonna get my unit in there. We're not gonna fit it in. Not for this size house." Well, that doesn't help. What are we gonna do? Um, well, we can either downsize the unit and then you won't be able to get all the aircon and heating that you need for the house, or we can just go to split systems, and we can have one big outdoor unit which we'll place down here, and then we'll just have multi-heads throughout the house. Still get the same effect with zoning and all that sort of thing anyway, so it's not a big change, but where when it came to that, being able to sort of sell that sort of thing to a client and be able to say, "Hey, look, for the option that comes in, you're not losing any of that zoning effect where when it comes to the house. In fact, you probably get a little bit more control." But admin-wise, it was a case of, okay, well, it's really only changing what's written on a purchase order that we're sending off to them. They're coming back to us with a price, which we're probably gonna revise it, and then the client gets a credit, and really I think it was about a $2,000 credit to the client. And sometimes you do get little wins, and clients get little wins like that. If they get a $2,000 credit in their back pocket, they look at it and go, "Well, we still get everything that we want in the home, and it's not that big a change."
Mm.
Occasionally, you can get those wins, and that can be, not a fear, but it can be certainly a positive outcome, from a change mid-build, and relatively easy to achieve.
I reckon it's one thing to make sure that we're doing at contract stage is having that real good conversation with them about that
Mm,
changing stuff, and letting them know that I suppose, as our builders coach says, he always says to explain it with stories. We can give examples like that where stuff goes pear shaped and it's going to cost this and that and affect this trade and that sub trade. And then all of a sudden you can give them the worst case scenario and let them make an educated decision based on that. Make your note in the contract so that
mm,
you can say, yep, we've discussed this, so that you can then refer to it, when it comes time if they do decide, because that 6-month time gap between contracts and, when the variation or the change in the plan might happen, they forget about it. We don't, but they might forget about it.
mm.
So pretty important to have that communication, I reckon.
I love my little checklist for, signing contracts where it's got those little things, and we can add more to it at any point
Yeah.
in time, and it's like, "Okay, well, have you discussed this with the client? Have you discussed this particular
Good
part
reminders, aren't
of
they?
of
Yeah.
the contract?" And sign that with the
Yeah.
client as well, and that's really powerful because they get a copy of it, and they're like, "Well, we went through this because that's something that could be really pivotal," and variations are sort of front of mind when it comes to
Mm.
a lot of that, because variations during a build, there's nobody wants to know that they're getting through a build and they're getting a big rude surprise by a $50,000 variation bill at the end because somebody wasn't thinking at the start.
Well, I think it's good to try and address your provisional sums and PC allowances as all right from the start as well.
Oh, yeah.
So yeah, if you've got a lot of that sort of stuff, we're trying to actually eliminate as much of it as we can, eliminate all of it if we can. If they can make their selections and get firm prices on everything, there's a lot less things that have to be adjusted as well throughout the process,
Mm,
because they can add up a lot too. Electrical, with lights and power points and fittings and however many they want to have, and then with all their bathroom PC items, kitchens and joinery and stuff like that. If you can get selections and get prices pinned down rather than just having provisional
allowances.
sums or prime costs in there,
Mm,
you can eliminate all those things that need to be adjusted at the end, and they've got a figure that should stay the same. And then as soon as they add something or want to change something, you just say, well, it's going to cost X.
yeah.
We can nut it out, or refine it straight away and make sure we've got the price agreed before we move forward, and then nothing else changes.
Mm,
Mm.
That seems to be a better method. It can be a bit tricky at times because a lot of the time, especially if plans haven't even been the approval process, and they're going to be like we said last time we were talking, 3 to 9 months to get a plan approval. You don't need to want to push people to rush and pick things because things might change and the selections they make might not be available then by the time their plan comes back. So it can be a bit tricky sometimes with that sort of thing.
Yeah.
But you just
oh,
got to
that's
make them aware of it anyway and make sure they really understand how it works.
Yeah, that's one of those really big things when it does come to selections is what's the risk of it not being available later on down the course? And well, going back to certain products that are out there, like we obviously had the issue with stone and people were selecting stones and that sort of thing, and then the ban came in and stopped certain stone from being able to be available. Then having to go and reselect it, and then there's price changes that come from that. And like imported tiles and stonework and that comes in from overseas, and you can't get it. And it might be a 6-month wait before you can get it. And what kind of scheduling issue does that cause? And oh, there's so many things that can actually go with all that.
The manufactured stone one was quite interesting with the silica stuff, wasn't it? Like they were 80% silica or whatever, so they banned them all and people had to go select something else. But then the people that were making them found ways to make them without silica. So then 2 months later, you could get it again.
Yep.
Yeah.
It was exactly the same. It just didn't have the silica in it. They just found another way of producing it. So if you had a waited, you could have matched it. But it just depends, I guess, on where the timing landed. But if you get caught in the middle of something like that, it can be a bit frustrating, can't it?
Yeah.
Mm.
And then how does a relationship go with the client when you get that sort of thing? And it's something that's completely out of our control.
I
And
think they're pretty good if you explain that to them. I think most people understand it's that, that it's out of your control as long as it's sort of pointed out and explained to them properly the process and how it works. And
Yeah.
there's documentation you can back that up with, say, look, this is what we've been given, this is what we have to do. And sorry, but it's just the way it is. It's out of our control.
that's it.
Mm.
Well, thank you very much, guys. I think that we've nailed that one on the head, and hope that there's been some good advice for people, and yeah, we can help more. But thanks a lot, Paul. Thanks a lot, Matt. And yeah, it's another episode of Builders Beyond Borders podcast.
Thanks, guys. See you next time.
Thank you.
See you next time, guys.
Thanks for tuning in to Builders Beyond Borders. If today's episode helped you feel more prepared, clearer, or more confident, share it with a mate who's planning their own build or reno. Got a question about building, renovating, or working with tradies? Send it our way. We might cover it in a future episode. And don't forget to hit follow or subscribe so you never miss the real stories, practical tips, and builder insights we've got coming your way. Everything shared on this podcast is based on our experiences and those of our guests. It's general info only. Any reliance on the information provided is done at your own risk.